Adam Zarf here from the Illawarra Business Chamber. Before I begin, I want to encourage everybody who hasn't already to download the government's COVID Safe app to allow our businesses to reopen sooner. Managing cash flow has been a critical issue facing businesses of all sizes since lockdown. Today we're at KPMG in Wollongong with the 4th episode of Business Response, sponsored by Wollongong City Council and produced by Relativity. I'm joined by Courtney West, a partner who specialises in taxation, compliance and business advisory services. Courtney will talk us through the 3 key scenarios Illawarra businesses find themselves in currently and what a sensible cash flow management strategy looks like for each. As before, our objective is for businesses to survive and to come out the other side of the lockdown. Courtney West, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Thanks, Adam. Great to be here.
So Courtney, tell us first up, what's so important about managing your cash flow in the current environment?
So I think businesses' immediate priority has absolutely been about the health and safety of their employees and customers, but they've also been looking and focused on their cash flow. Understanding and managing their cash flow in what we're calling is essentially a survival phase for many of the businesses. So it's important that businesses are understanding the cash that's coming in and the cash that's going out of their business.
Tell us about the strategies that you're seeing businesses deploy in the current environment.
We're talking with clients around a 3-phase approach to their strategy. So the first phase is a survival phase, the second phase is an adapt phase, and then a rebound phase. And positioning their business so that they can survive, adapt and rebound is really important for the businesses.
Could you tell us first about what survival looks like?
So I think overall, Adam, it's about supporting business endurance. So that survival phase is obviously critical. You've got to get through this first phase when there's been significant change and upheaval in the way that you're doing business. So ensuring that you've got sufficient cash to get you through this first phase is really important.
So Courtney, what sort of strategies are businesses implementing right now to survive the current environment?
So I think the 3 business strategies that we've seen implemented at the moment are around hibernation. So businesses that have been forced to close or have elected to close, so they're hibernating their business. We've got businesses that are innovating, so really exciting. They're looking for new opportunities, looking potentially for new customers or different ways to service their clients. And then modified business as usual. I don't think anyone can say in this environment that it's business as usual. Really, they're operating in a modified space.
Could you tell us a little bit more about what a hibernation strategy looks like?
So for businesses that are hibernating, their focus is absolutely on survival. So they're in the survival phase for their business. Their cash flow modelling is being looked at in the context of no income coming in. They're looking at their labour costs and how JobKeeper payments might supplement that if they've got labour costs. They're bringing down operating costs and really keeping those to an absolute minimum, the maintenance type costs only. And they're looking to defer as many fixed costs as they can. For those businesses, the key issue is how long is the cash that I've got going to last? How long is it going to see me through in this survival phase and planning for that?
So to what extent is government support an aspect of survival right now?
I think the government initiatives that have come out have definitely helped businesses to understand and to better plan their cash flow in this survival phase that they're in. And I think it's important to look at the criteria of eligibility. So what government incentives are you eligible for? And also when you're planning your cash flow, it's critical that you understand the timing of when those government incentives will come in.
So if you're hibernating right now, what happens next?
For those businesses that are in survival phase, we know how critical that is and how time consuming it can be. But what we've seen from business owners is really that this is an opportunity to also work on their business, and they're really up for that challenge. So looking at how they're going to adapt their business and how they're going to take it forward.
Tell us about how people are adapting right now.
So businesses are having to adapt to the rapidly changing environment that we're in. The examples of innovation that we're seeing certainly are those businesses who've absolutely had to change the way that they're doing things and how they're reaching their customers, or potentially how they're getting to new customers. So Restaurants and cafes who are doing fantastic takeaway business, fine dining switching to a takeaway. Also seeing event and training providers who have switched to an online platform and using that to reach potentially new customers who are accessing their resources that way. I think for these businesses, the cash flow is really important as well, because they're out there testing new offerings and testing new ways of getting to those customers. So they can be incurring new costs that they've never incurred before. So it's important for them to have a cash flow that is flexible and adaptive to when they're making these changes to their business.
So for businesses that are operating as usual, Courtney, do you have any advice for them, or can they just unsubscribe?
I definitely don't think they can unsubscribe. So in this environment that we're in, changes can obviously happen very suddenly. Customer demand can change, and the way that people are accessing goods and services can absolutely change. So every business, I think, if they're not in those other phases, they're certainly operating in a modified business as usual element. So they need to be looking at their cash flow in that context, looking at planning for potentially sudden changes that might impact them.
So Courtney, what are some practical cash flow tips that you could give us right now for anyone who's watching?
So I think there are some key things when you're thinking about your cash flow. And firstly, I would say your purpose. So be thinking about upfront defining what your purpose of doing your cash flow is. I think you also need to think about your key performance indicators. What's driving the cash flow? What's driving the business? And really understanding that. The good cash flows that we've seen certainly have flags and triggers built into them. So understanding if there's a trigger point for solvency or liquidity issues in the business and mapping that out. As I said before, you need flexibility in your cash flow. So make it flexible so that you can introduce potentially new or different revenue streams. Making it visual helps you to understand and to easily pick up on things that are happening in the cash flow as well. The other thing that I'd caution is just around timing. So being careful when you're preparing your cash flow and looking at it around the timing of when cash is flowing in and out and how they're matching. So things like the government incentives and the timing of when that might flow in.
Perhaps just give us some examples of some of these tips, if you could.
So I think from a purpose perspective, understanding where you want your cash position to be at certain points in time. So a lot of our businesses have prepared initial cash flows that cover off on sort of 3 to 6 months. But now that we've got some significant government incentives coming in, I think you actually need to start pushing that cash flow out. So understanding at the end of when those government incentives finish being paid, what's my cash position going to look like then, and how does that continue? So understanding those things, I think, will help you to build a cash flow that will make sure that you're assessing the liquidity of the business as you're moving forward into different phases.
And hopefully, once we're out of this, we can all look at rebounding. What does a business strategy for that phase look like?
And so I think that's really important, that the businesses are actually linking all of this to their business strategy. So that rebound phase is how are you going to take the business forward? We know that we're going to be operating in very different conditions to what we are now. Some businesses who have taken their business online may have a new revenue stream, one that they didn't have before. They might also have different revenue streams or the loss of different parts of their business. And so I think that rebound phase is really important to plan for, that longer term cash flow, understanding how that links to your business.
Okay, Courtney, what are the next steps that you would advise a business to do right now?
Well, I think talking to your accountant's really important. But I think business owners need to be formulating 3 plans. The plan around now. So that ties into your survival plan. Things like talking to your bank, talking to your suppliers, negotiating and talking to your landlord. And really, obviously critical to that is communicating with employees. I think the other parts that the business need to do is to focus on recovery. So looking at a 6 to 24 month plan. How is the business going to adapt? How am I going to take it forward? And then obviously that feeds into your longer term planning.
Well, Courtney, thank you so much for being with us today, and I know that businesses will be really appreciative of the advice you've given us.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you, Courtney, and thanks to you for continuing to support our Business Response series. If you're in business, we advise that you meet with your local accountant to plan your recovery individually. Next week, we'll be covering how to promote your business and what does the new normal look like in marketing and advertising. We'll be joined by our friends at Waples Marketing Group, so please send your questions or any topic you'd like covered by leaving a comment on this Facebook post, sending us a Facebook message or an email. Thanks for joining us, and thank you again to our sponsor, Wollongong City Council. And don't forget to download the COVID Safe app to help us reopen businesses sooner. We'll see you next week.